Welcome to another episode of Follow the Brand TV. I am your host, Grant McGaugh, CEO of 5-Star BDM, a 5-star personal brand and business development company. I want to take you on a journey through another deep dive into the world of personal branding and business development using compelling personal stories, business conversations, and tips to improve your brand. By listening to the Follow the Brand TV series, you will differentiate yourself from the competition and build trust with prospective clients and employers. You never get a second chance to make a first impression. Make it one that will set you apart, build confidence, and reflect who you are. Building your 5-star personal brand is a great way to improve your skills and knowledge. If you have any questions for me or any of my guests, please email me at grant.mcgaugh@5starbdm.com. Now, let's begin with our next episode on the Follow the Brand TV.
Five-Star BDM, Brand Development Masters, is a professional consulting and advisory group keenly focused on business development services for the small to mid-sized business and entrepreneurs. Although every business is unique, they often share business development challenges that can be addressed through smart branding. Services include process improvement and operations, digital strategy and transformation, business intelligence, digital marketing, and personal branding. Our business and personal branding company has helped a number of professionals and organizations to optimize and grow. This results in more business, more opportunities, better reach, positive outcomes. Visit www.5starbdm.com today to learn more.
Pull from, my purpose and strength is with federally qualified health centers and community providers that are really the boots on the ground, helping improve care and helping drive those better outcomes for patients and the communities that they live and work in. We're definitely in an exciting time. I think everybody says that because healthcare is always changing. But from a digital perspective and a technological adoption standpoint, there's a lot of movement in healthcare.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Follow the Brand Podcast. I'm your host, Grant McGaugh, and every now and then I get to go to Texas. Everything's big in Texas. That's what they told me. They got big stars. They got big people. Everybody is larger than life. Well, I tell you, I ran into Franchella Jennett, and I'm telling you, man, I met her. She was referred to me by a great person. And I have been nothing short of impressed with everything she has done. And she has agreed to come on to the podcast today and talk about her journey, talk about what things are important for her. And we're going to get a better insight into her own personal brand. Franchella, you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much, Grant. Thank you for having me. Franchella Jennett, I am a seasoned, I like to say, healthcare executive, very much interested in the digital health world, but more so from a population health value-based care perspective. I've been working in that space for over 15 years. And I enjoy helping connect providers and ultimately patients with better health outcomes and getting providers to think differently about their payment models. My background is in large health systems, working clinically integrated networks and managing those, but where I found my foundation and I pull from, my purpose and strength is with federally qualified health centers and community providers that are really the boots on the ground, helping improve care and helping drive those better outcomes for patients and the communities that they live and work in.
Well, let's unpack that just a little bit because this is interesting. We want to get a little bit about your journey, your background in healthcare, because it's definitely pretty broad in what you've done. But everybody has what we call that pivotal moment in their life as you think through it. That moment that you chose healthcare as a career, or maybe healthcare chose you as a career. What was that moment like for you?
I do like to think that healthcare chose me, but it was a mutual love. My mother was a nurse, so I was born into healthcare, and she worked for the Veterans Administration doing long-term care. So I got to witness firsthand our country's soldiers kind of in the latter part of their life or in some kind of long-term care support system, and just how valued they were by the nursing staff, including my mom. But I was always kind of questioning, like, who's in charge here besides you, mom? Who's in charge? And there was always like some doctor or director that was referenced. And I always thought, I want to be that person. But I think the kind of pivotal moment for me in terms of just being more of an administrator in healthcare and what really connected the personal purpose for me was working in a volunteer clinic in college and recognizing that our providers were so frustrated by all the social concerns related to patients like not coming in, missing their appointments, um, having substance abuse concerns, like just things beyond what they could really address or get to the root of their issues and managing their concerns. I felt like I really need to help our providers out in a way that it's not just through providing care for patients, it's through changing the systems around them and helping build infrastructure that can better support patients or patients in the care continuum, so that when a patient presents in an office or has that virtual connect, that they have more than just that doctor's visit to support them. So I think that's what kind of really charged me with participation in healthcare, and the connection to value-based care was, again, that infrastructure that ultimately is trying to help providers provide care, do what they went to school to do, and helping patients get better and live healthier lives.
Let's unpack that even more because I like how you talked about the system and the delivery of care, especially from an administrative standpoint, and how we can do that through now technology has gotten better. You've probably seen some of these changes that take place. Are you, and this is something that I hear a lot about that healthcare uh, executives or just providers. Some of them are gung-ho about utilizing new technology. Some are not. Some are middle of the road. They're not really sure. I think COVID kind of definitely accelerated a lot of things from a telehealth perspective. I want to get your take on things.
There is no, in terms of, giving back that disease is no different with a homeless person than a billionaire. It's non-negotiable. And maybe if we understand that, we could be more empathetic as opposed to judgmental. Because in life, we have choice. You don't like the school your kids go to, you could change it. You don't like your crappy job, you don't like your family members, you could move to another state. If you bought something for 30, 60, 90 days and contract, you could return it. But when it comes to accurately diagnosed disease, there's no one that can give it back. So now how you may deal with your disease and how I may deal with it may be different based on who we are, the individual, our culture, and so forth.
You have to know the right people, be connected to the right people. It is very unfortunate, but most people progress because they were chosen. And for African Americans, we're not chosen. We don't have the connections, the network, the people in our Rolodex. So you need to network and connect. And it's typically with people who don't look like you.
Well, I think it's both exposure and experience. And you can't get the experience if you don't get the opportunity. So that's the key. But, it goes back to a couple of things. One, as I said earlier, well, several things. Let's put it this. So you have to sort of think through and be very intentional about what you want to do and what it takes. And then that means, obviously, to your point, you get your education and you get the credentials, et cetera. And what's next? So what next is, first, whatever role you're in at that point, make sure that you are doing the job. You're getting the job done. So performance is key, first of all, in whatever role you're in. And then secondly, and this is where we as I said earlier when we were talking, it can't just be you. No one gets to the next step just by themselves. So it is about exposures. It is about having those mentors and those counselors and coaches and people who will mentor you and sponsor you. And sometimes that's what we, particularly people of color, we don't have a lot of times folks who are mentored or coached or have a sponsor. So you have to be open to creating those relationships that are key, both internally to wherever you are as well as external.
Yeah, we're definitely in an exciting time. I think everybody says that because healthcare is always changing. But from a digital perspective and a technological adoption standpoint, there's a lot of movement in healthcare. I think there was a lot of recognition during the pandemic that there were a lot of different avenues that could be served and addressed with technology. And so there were probably already a lot of different innovations in the pipeline, but the adoption of them, the interest in them just kicked up exponentially because we needed new ways to deliver care. The things that I think as a healthcare professional, I've been waiting on that kind of move beyond the walls of traditional healthcare. And so the acceleration of telemedicine visits and different home devices that could be used to relay health information to providers is really pivotal in the pandemic. And even more so now, just how we're connecting patients to care beyond the care they get with the provider, helping them be more accountable. There's so much technology out there, and I think it's fantastic. But ultimately, I will say my take on it is all these tools can be developed. Health systems and providers can say, here, patient, take this. I want you to use this. None of that really matters if people don't connect to those things or if they don't have a personal interest to take care of themselves, to want to be well, to prioritize their health. And so that's kind of my next iteration. Like, how do we leverage digital communications or other digital tools, these algorithms that you and I have talked about, Grant, that influence, what materials and content we see in the internet that inspire and also motivate people to get involved in their care, to to do something, to see their doctor, to address that reduction in vision that they may be experiencing, or just to get their blood sugar checked on a regular basis, all types of things. So that's kind of the area of digital health I think I'm interested in, driving more patient connection to get interested in the tools and resources that we have available in the current infrastructure.
No, that's noble, and has to be done because of the access to healthcare. And you only have so many workers, so many providers can only get to so many people. And I think we're at a point now in our culture, or at least our country, that we got a lot of elderly population out there. They're going to need more and more care. How are we going to deliver that care is so important. So we've got to start adopting and getting used to this new technology. And I think people did get used to some things on telehealth, and they started to realize these are things that are good for telehealth and these are things that are not so good. So you begin to understand where you can utilize the technology to get better adoption. And I like what you said about conveying information and to give them certain alerts to let them know, hey, it's time for your physical. Hey, it's time to go ahead and engage. Hey, have you checked your weight? Have you checked certain vitals that are necessary? And you can do this now with remote patient monitoring tools that they have. There's so many different ways, but we have to adopt it and engage. I want you to help the audience understand what is a federally qualified health centers and what do you do? How do you help them to be more of a caregiver?
Sure. Federally qualified health centers, FQHCs, also known as community health centers, are organizations very much based and grown out of communities that are generally federally funded and supported to provide care for everyone, anyone who needs it. They're mission driven and also obligated by their grant funding to provide care, whether you have insurance or no insurance. And typically the FQHCs are primary care focused, but some of them also have specialty care baked in, as well as behavioral health, dental, vision. They're really kind of a one-stop shop health service organization. And that's what makes them so fantastic. Again, they're usually very mission oriented and mission driven. So they hold a very unique space in the healthcare provider scape. And why they're important to me, I mentioned earlier, I started my career with a federally qualified health center working on the west side of Chicago. And it really gave me the opportunity to see, boots on the ground, really getting into things like there are community health workers that engage patients, and they were doing this way before large health systems and others are doing it. They were trying to utilize different types of providers, say for counseling services, and those things might not have been billable, but it was the right thing to do. And so what I do now with federally qualified health centers is try to help them think about different models for their payment for doing some of these services, this different type of care that they've been doing for years. So I tell them, think about the services or the things you do today that you don't get paid for. How can we build a model of care around that where we could get reimbursed for it, or that everything was, regardless of the payment, it's all about the outcome for the patient. What would you do to service the patient better, special, or different? So that is the world I'm living in right now. I'm building a clinically integrated network with federally qualified health centers that they are driving and leading the governance of. And it's very exciting to see them work collaboratively as opposed to just separately, as I know they're doing their very specific work in their own communities. It's about leveraging the power of the collective effort to do these alternative payment models with insurance companies.
Do you feel that there's a gap in the infrastructure between all the different entities that you're working with, that possibly some kind of technology or software development could help? And can you cite any specific opportunity, or could you reimagine what that healthcare delivery could look like?
Yeah, so first and foremost, the data, and I know people say this all the time, but like the data is the part that really brings all of the entities together, from the payer to the provider, to the patient, right? Um, all the data is coming from different sources, different inputs, and you need a strong aggregator and analyzer that can really give you a story about the patient, the financial performance, and then it kind of predicts or projects like where you go from there, what kind of models you can build based off of current utilization, current financial outcomes, and health outcomes. So without that, you can't really do very much anything related to any other digital or technology-based solutions, in my opinion. But I do see there's a critical role when you talk about providers working together as a network, something where they're utilizing either more electronic provider-based technology or telehealth. I love platforms that allow people to kind of self-care or self-monitor in the home, but also where that instruction can come from that tool. It doesn't necessarily have to come from a provider. The provider gets the information about that patient's self-care, self-monitoring, but there's AI or technology that can instruct the patient based on what is being recognized in the moment about what needs to happen. So when we were talking about earlier, like, those triggers, like, you need to do this, patient, or have you thought about going to get your eyes checked or calling your doctor about this? Like, that's the type of technology I think would play a very critical role in health centers or anybody really working together as more of like a virtual network that's set out to improve patient outcomes. So I would love to help get that type of technology into our network and deploy it across our centers so that patients, wherever they are, can start to self-manage and learn from the technology that they have or possess and have access to, where our providers can monitor them from a distance.
Okay, your input is so important for especially a person like myself who've been in technology for 20, 25 years, understanding we need, as the technologists, we need to understand the current state, where the gaps lie, and what the challenges are, what are the friction points, so that when we collaborate together, we can give you a tool that really works for you. So you don't have to bend toward the tool and change how your workflow is going. No, it should be a natural, glove to your hand to make things work better. What you're going to probably see in the next year to 2 to 3 years, more AI engineering, artificial intelligence engineering into the fabric of a lot of these networks. And then you also have access to data scientists. But I would tell them all, the database, they need to understand what they're looking at from a person like yourself. Like, what does this actually mean? And all those triggers you just talked about, we're talking about the financial triggers, the operational, triggers, and then obviously the patient outcomes and the patient experience. Those are things that technologists can't do just by themselves, and they need input from people like yourself that understand it, who've grown up with it and know it very intimately. They know what will actually make an impact instead of just trying to force something down the road. And I think that's important. You also work a lot with value-based care modeling, and that's newer now because it's the fee-for-service that's taking place. You see some people, they play with it. Maybe it's more two-dimensional, but they haven't gone deep into it. I've seen some clinics, especially like here in Florida, they do that. They do decapitated rates and things of that nature. And it's an at-risk model, but it is risky. How have you found value in value-based care in your particular role?
So I can speak to this from kind of roles prior and also currently where I am. Value-based care is definitely, again, taking the focus off of the payment There are incentives, right? I think that's how you really get provider buy-in and participation in value-based care, but it takes the focus off of the payment and focuses on the patient and what the patient needs and what specifically needs to be measured in order to say, provider, you're doing a great job. I think it also has been focused on putting data in front of providers, so making care more transparent, more objective, and of course, the patient's actual outcomes are highly visible and the priority. So I think that's one piece of value that has really come out of value-based care. The other piece, I think, is bringing providers together in a way that helps also merge like patient information, patient data. So when we were talking about some gaps, obviously the disparate systems that we utilize to collect and monitor patients is a problem. Everybody's on a different EMR. Everybody has, some people are still on paper, God forbid, but they are. And so there's no way to really strongly aggregate that data. While we have some EMRs that, are doing more interfacing and there's more adoption of specific brands of EMRs, there's still a disconnect there. So working together in like accountable care organizations has called for the aggregation of data. CMS is giving out data in large batches for other entities to analyze and help build a story and tell a story around patient and their outcomes, their utilization. So I think that's another real valuable piece. I will say in kind of wrapping up this, there's been a lot of movement in value-based care and alternative payment models, and it hasn't really produced there's been a lot of savings, so I don't want to discount that, but it hasn't, I think, produced or accelerated the change in healthcare that we really want to see. So I think there's still a lot of untapped potential in value-based care that we can get out of it. So there's definitely a long road. And to bring it back to just digital health, I think that's the next iteration. How do we leverage the technology that actually integrates more with patients, not just the solutions that help provide care, but the engagement in their care?
Very fascinating. And I love your insights because it's not a solved problem. It's not an easy solution to get into, but it's something that we need to track toward as we go forward in our healthcare, especially in the US. I know that we both belong to a similar organization, or I would say the same organization. That's the NAHSE, right? Healthcare Executive. They just had their conference in Atlanta. And I want you to just give me your take. Like, what did you get out of that conference? How does that really play in what you're doing and the value that you see in working with the organization?
Yeah, I've been a long time standing member of NAHSE since I think I was in grad school or first came out of grad school. And I'm so thrilled that I was able to kind of get back into conference this year, having attended in Atlanta. I'll highlight, in addition just to reconnecting with folks and being able to see so many colleagues across the country that are leading healthcare in so many different ways. One major takeaway for me relates to this conversation was we talked about federally qualified health centers, which I think was a first at NAHSE at the conference. And it was really exposing, our professional group to this other sector of healthcare that's, like I said, been established, been doing value-based care, been partnering with hospital systems like for eons, for decades. And I think it's just such an important call out, not just because of the great work that FQHCs do and the role that they play in the broader healthcare landscape, but it's also a career route, a very mission-driven oriented career path that, maybe young professionals haven't considered or haven't been exposed to. So I thought that was fantastic that NAHSE highlighted it, but there were some phenomenal speakers that took the stage. And it's always great also to just see the recognition of young professionals at NAHSE. I have been a mentor in the space. I've judged the case competition in the past, so it's always exciting to see the team that wins, all the scholarships that are given out to support Black graduate students and postgraduates with furthering their education, because that's the name of the game. You gather as much knowledge as you can to be successful in the industry. So a big shout out to NAHSE for the role that it played, and another awesome conference year. Really excited I was able to take place, and we'll see you in Fort Lauderdale next year.
Oh, you're coming to my hometown. So yeah, I will definitely be there. Can't wait to do it. You are not only a guest, but you are a client of 5-Star BDM, and I applaud you for that. One of the things that we discerned as you worked with me was your personal tagline that you have about pioneering healthcare journeys. I really like that. Can you just give us some understanding or just some context around what you got out of our engagement, and how do you feel that's going to help you moving forward?
Yeah, I think it was phenomenal, like having that time to reflect on my own personal brand and what I could do, what I needed to do, where the opportunity lies. And I think it's also very affirmative to work with someone that can, kind of just show you like you've done a lot, you've done great things. Now it's time for the world to be more engaged and involved in what you have to say, and being receptive to that, being open to sharing. So I think the time spent reflecting and really pushing myself to think about how to tell the story differently, where to communicate that story was really helpful. It's still a work in progress, but dedicating the time to craft those messages, those communications. Again, like I am super interested in utilizing digital health, thinking about which technologies make sense for my network, for, beyond what I'm doing today. And nobody would know that, right, if I'm not telling my story. So I think it's so important to engage with leaders like you, Grant, to help leaders like me develop that story to share with others, not just for my own advancement, but I'm always big on like inspiring others, and I'm certain through our connection that others will find what we discovered together very valuable at some point in their career. I want to point out that like my interest with digital health, it's all about like trying and testing out different things. I heard somewhere at a conference that 70% of digital transformation projects fail. And so I think it's so important to, again, put the information out there, like what's been tried and tested, but also like where we need help, like where and when we're willing to test things out, because we'll only know by like, implementing and then failing fast and then going to the next thing. And I think, I want that to be a big part of my brand and who I am. And I appreciate you, Grant, for helping me articulate that and recognize the other ways that I can put that out there for folks.
Oh, without question. I learned a lot by working with you, understanding where you're at now and the pivot points you could possibly make going forward. And we need you, friend. I'm talking from my putting out my hat around information technology. We can't do it by ourselves. One of the reasons why 70% of those projects fail is because they don't get the right stakeholders. They don't have the right people in the room giving the right information. And I would tell you the biggest problem is human adoption, because no one wants to adopt something that they don't find value in. And if you haven't included all of the different facets of what's necessary in an implementation that's going to change workflow, and remember, you're dealing with patients' lives and their outcomes. That is a very serious thing. So you want to take your time and you want to do it right, but you have to involve all the different stakeholders. I learned a lot of that by working with you. So I really, really appreciate it. I call her the Maverick. She is the Maverick. You know, she's down there in Texas, just holding it down. I really appreciate you being on the show. And if there's anything you like to leave us with, anything that you would like the audience to know, that you feel that's important that we have not talked about, I'm going to give you the mic and let you run with it.
Okay, I'll try not to run too far. One, I recognize that there were a number of people that helped me get to where I am. I definitely couldn't do it without mentors and sponsors, and also just taking risks, taking chances to grow and to glow. And so, again, shout out to you, Grant, for helping in the growing and glowing process, even in a point in my career where I'm leading and developing kind of, new innovative networks. There's always space if you're open to continue to advance. So I want to offer that as advice to anyone listening. It's never too late. Never get comfortable with kind of where you are. I read somewhere that like comfort and advancement can't coexist. I think you have to be a little uncomfortable to move to the next level. So, again, a charge to anyone who's feeling comfortable, they've hit their stride. The other piece I wanted to mention is, again, going back to the digital health front. I'm working with, providers on the front lines, and we know where the challenges lie. I think, again, there's so many innovations out there, and they're wonderful, some really great technologies, but, they may not all be getting at the root cause of the problem or the root of the problem. You can solve for a lot of health issues directly, but how do you solve for people who are not connecting, who are not engaged in their care? That's where I think a lot of the provider frustration resonates. So how do we find those patients? How do we engage with them? Another just random statistic, it's like almost 70% of millennials are not likely to use a primary care provider. So thinking beyond, again, the walls of a PCP office, even beyond a telemedicine visit with a primary care provider. And think the statistics higher or pretty similar for Gen Z. So we definitely have to take it in that direction, even as we are addressing the needs and the technology adoption for our seniors, our silenced population. That's another avenue where technology is very much beneficial, but it's just, there are specific problems we need to be solving for, and working together with those that are on the front lines, I think, is the best way for technology adoption to be successful. So I offer myself out there for anyone who wants to chat about, where the real issues are, and if there's new technologies to be vetted in the healthcare space that really function to engage patients where they are based on their needs, it'd be great to reach out.
Oh, awesome. And that's the great leeway. So what is the best way to get in contact with Miss Franchella?
Yeah, the best way to connect with me, I have a LinkedIn account. You can find me on LinkedIn, Franchella Jennett. My email is also francellajennett@gmail.com. If you ever want to connect personally, feel free to reach out. My Twitter or my X profile is coming soon, so you'll be able to find that information on my LinkedIn page as well.
Well, this has been wonderful. Again, I've learned so much. Every time I interact with you, there's always new knowledge, new understanding, new insights that I gain. I really appreciate you being on the show. I want to encourage everyone listening, especially out there in Texas, where everything is really big. I want them to definitely tune in to all the episodes of Follow the Brand at 5-Star BDM. That is the number 5, that's star, that's B for brand, D for development, M for masters.com. This has been wonderful. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you, Grant.
Follow the Brand TV broadcast host, Grant McGaw, as he visits with top executives and entrepreneurs to find out their secrets of success with their personal brand. Follow the Brand TV broadcast host as he focuses on brand development to build better relationships, bring value to your business, relationships, and career. You will enjoy listening to each episode that is tailored to speak to you directly. If you're looking for this type of clarity in terms of building your brand, you have tuned into the right station. Each episode will help you to shape a conversation in the 5-star BDM network of 20,000 professionals and become a springboard for your corporate engagement and business opportunities. Each guest will frame their story in the areas of personal branding, business development, career development, financial empowerment, and technology innovation. Grant McGaw explains why he is the CEO and owner of his own professional career. Grant is an accomplished business leader and entrepreneur who wants to give back to individuals to grow their personal brand strategy. Tune in as he weaves his story about new possibilities, while to you exceed expectations. If you love storytelling, this show will make for fun.
Welcome to Follow the Brand TV. I am your host, Grant McGaw, CEO of 5-Star BDM, a 5-star personal brand and business development company. B for brand, D for development, and M for masters. Today, I'm going to take you on a journey through another deep dive into the world of personal branding and business development using compelling personal stories, business conversations, and tips to improve your brand. By watching the Follow the Brand TV series, you will learn how to differentiate yourself from the competition and build trust with prospective clients. As the saying goes, you never get a second chance to make a first impression. So make it one that will set you apart, build confidence, and reflect who you are. Building your 5-star personal brand is a great way to improve your skills and knowledge. If you have any questions for me or any of my guests, please email me at grant.mcgaw@5starbdm.com. Now, let's jump into our next episode on Follow the Brand TV. This episode is brought to you by
5-Star BDM, Brand Development Masters, is a professional consulting and advisory group keenly focused on business development services for the small to mid-sized business and entrepreneurs. Although every business is unique, they often share business development challenges that can be addressed through smart branding. Services include process improvement and operations, digital strategy and transformation, business intelligence, digital marketing, and personal branding. Our business and personal branding company has helped a number of professionals and organizations to optimize and grow. This results in more business, more opportunities, better reach, positive outcomes. Visit www.5starbdm.com today to learn more.
Welcome again to your #1 YouTube personal brand channel. I am Grant McGaw. It's an honor for me to recap the story of a great personality who has consumed herself with executive achievement in the healthcare industry. She is a well-known former hospital CEO. She serves as a strategic advisor for RMP Group LLC. She formerly served as president and chief executive officer of 4 hospitals in Washington, D.C., Michigan, and Toledo, Ohio. When you have a goal to become an amazing CEO, you must learn how you are perceived by others. Focusing on your personal brand will help you to gain trust and cooperation with your team of high-performing executives. She understood this principle early in her career as she details her story. To better understand her accomplishments, I'll recap our conversation from the Follow the Brand podcast interview in episode 5. Our guest today is Miss Andrea Price. I asked Andrea what was the one thing that she wished she had known before she began her career. Her answer may surprise you.
Sure. I would say the one thing I wish I'd known before I began my career was how many times I had to prove myself over and over and over again. I had no idea. I was naive. I thought that if I had the educational attainment, if I had the credentials in my field, if I'd been successful in the positions that I had the privilege to obtain, then it wouldn't be any question. And that just didn't happen. And so I was a little disenchanted because I'm thinking, but I've proven myself. Why are you questioning me? I mean, people would look at me and say, oh, she's Black. They would look at me and say, oh, she's a woman. They would look at me and said, are you still in college? Yes, unfortunately or fortunately, when I started my career in DC, I looked very young. And so people assume, knowing nothing about me, that there's no way I could occupy the positions that I had because I was too young.
I felt her passion as she described the constant battle to prove herself continuously through her career. I then wanted to know how she did define her personal brand and how has it helped her to succeed in her career.
I would tell you, I always tell people when people talk about brand, your brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room. I learned that early in my career. And what I learned is when I wasn't around, people said a lot of positive things about me that I didn't know they were saying. When I started my career, I became known as a doer. And that's what the president CEO, I said, doer, what is that? He said, you get things done, Andrea. He said, you really do. And he said, I think people are going to always underestimate you because they're going to look at you and say, no, not her. And you're going to prove them wrong every single time. And at the time, you know, you're young, you're like, okay, Don, okay, that's what you said. But he was absolutely right every single time. And so, you know, as I progressed through my career ladder, it became known that I was the one who could execute on strategic priorities, work with teams, gather people, get them done, meet deadlines, exceed, whatever. And so that's what I was known for. So there are a lot of things I was able to do early on, young. You know, we would have these natural disasters. They would make me in charge of the command center. And everybody's coming in, they're like, who in charge? She's in charge? And I'm directing people what to do, pick up people, where to go. I mean, you know, it was just, you know, amazing. And so, you know, even when I was rounding on patients and family members, people were like, who are you again? And I'll explain who I am and why I was there. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I used to surprise the physicians. They would be rounding and they're like, Andrea Price, why are you up so early? I'm like, the last time I checked, a hospital never closed. Why are you up so early? So I would laugh and joke with them. And so people just, you know, it kind of known that I'm a person who would show up unannounced, no matter what time, no matter what day. And you know, just have a little fun with the staff and the physicians because they don't expect people at the executive level to do that.
What did you think of her answer? I like the fact that she knew her brand early and was able to use it to overcome perceptions. Naturally, I needed to find out how she got that first leadership role. Listen as she details her trajectory to the C-suite.
Sure. While I was at Children, when I completed my administrative fellowship, there was no guarantee that they would keep me on. But I worked like nobody business that 12 months to prove to them that they should keep me on. And they did. And so I became the assistant to the chief operating officer. There was a switch, the CEO left, and then the chief operating officer became the CEO. When he did that, he promoted me to like a staff role. like an assistant vice president of administrative affairs. It was still a staff role. I had no line responsibilities. And so then one day he called me in the office, Sandra, I think you're ready for line management. And totally unannounced, he started quizzing me. I'm like, Don, what are you doing? I thought you were coming to give me an assignment. You're interviewing me and quizzing me. And he said, yeah, I want to see if you're ready. And so afterwards, he said, I think you are. And so that was my first line management role. I had 5 departments reporting to me. And so now I had to learn, I'm not the person that's always doing. Now I have to delegate and work through others to get things done. And so that was a great learning responsibility of me, because I learned people aren't like me. I'm one of these people, let's get it done. What's the deadline? What's the time? What do you need to see? And people aren't like that. Not that they can't perform, but they're not going to perform in the manner in which I do. So it was, once I learned that, I got promoted again, and I got promoted again. And I think the pinnacle for me was when the chairman of the cardiovascular surgery department went to the president and said, I want to report to Andrea Price. And he said, excuse me, I don't think I heard you. He said, he said, you want to report to Andrea Price? He said, yes, I do. He said, she gets things done. When she say yes, she means yes. When she say no, she means no. I'm a surgeon and I like that. And I want to report to her. In fact, I'm demanding that I report to her. And he was like, okay. So the person he no longer reported to was not happy that he was reporting to me. And we had a great relationship. Everyone in his department were men. And so I said, if you're going to report to me, I want you to at least, when an opening comes, look for a woman as a cardiovascular perfusionist. And he said I would. He did, and he hired one.
I was most impressed how she was able to pivot from a doer to expert in working with people and creating great relationships. I asked Andrea about her unique skill that she leveraged again and again to help her climb the corporate ladder.
Sure. I would say it took me a while to realize this, but after enough people told me, especially those who were, conducting my performance evaluation and my teammates, I would say my superpower is my influence. I have the uncanny ability, I didn't know it at the time, to get people comfortable with where the organization wants to go, their organization goes. And so I would get them to create commitment around achieving those. And what I did was I did that through guidance and coaching. So for example, if you reported to me and there was a report that was due to me, I will review it and give you feedback, even though it was coming to me. And so people are like, you do that? I mean, my colleagues I was like, yes, because I want them to succeed. And they were like, oh, we never thought about that. And so then it became like he or she is on Andrea's team. So throughout the hospital, people would say, oh yeah, they report to Andrea. That's why they're so good. And so it just created this whole thing. And they were like, well, how do you get your people to do what you need to do? I said, first of all, you have to be authentic. And first of all, you have to set expectations. I said, I'm known in the hospital as setting very clear expectation and holding people accountable. And they like it. So, so I would say my ability to influence people to do what needs to get done.
Influence, guidance, and coaching were her keys to success. Have you done the internal assessment of yourself to determine your unique skill sets? Imagine that you are working with a famous doctor that would one day become a household name. Let's find out from Andrea about her 5 minutes of fame.
Well, I gave a little teaser earlier when I talked about my second semester of graduate school that I became really ill and I was told that I was going to die. Well, when I got to DC, and because I had an excellent physician, I decided I need to learn more about this disease that I have. And so I'm one of these people, when I don't know anything, I investigate and I research. And so I did. I found out there was a chapter. I joined the chapter, ended up becoming the chairman of the board. And because I was chairman of the board, the Lupus Foundation of America asked me if I would be their national spokesperson. So I became the national spokesperson. So as the national spokesperson, I represented them. So I used to have meetings at NIH with the famous Dr. Anthony Fauci.
No way.
And yeah, I used to go to his office. I had no idea who he was. Okay, so anyway, so we would meet at NIH, and then the executive director of the Allergy and Asthma Foundation of America. There were 3 organizations, I can't think of the third one, that would go and meet with him and talk about, well, what is the research, that's going to help people that have these type of diseases. As a result of that, I ended up going to a congressional budget committee representing the Lupus Foundation of America to advocate on behalf. It was recorded in the Federal Register and everything, my remarks, to advocate that NIH receive additional budget funds in order to advance research for autoimmune diseases, right?
Right.
While I was there at the congressional hearing, there were 2 other people waiting with me to speak. One was William Shatner from the Star Trek series. The other one was someone I really admire, Dr. Mary Frances Berry. Dr. Berry was the Secretary of Education under President Clinton. At the time I met her, she was the chair of the U.S. Commission on Civil Rights. And she was there because her niece was 21 years old and died from lupus. And she was there advocating money for the research for lupus. And so we got to talking. I'm thinking, okay, Andrea, just calm down, because I really admire this woman. And so, of course, she took the show. They bowed down to her. And I'm thinking, I gotta go speak after this woman, because they had us lined up. And so I did, I did it. And afterwards, she said, would you like me to drop you off at home? I was like,
wow.
I was just gonna take the subway. And she said, sure. And we got to talking. She told me all about her niece, how devastated they were. She died from lupus. And she was asking me all these questions about me and lupus, because I was 24, 25, whatever. And, how I was holding up and all that type of stuff. And so that's something someone doesn't know. And then the last thing I would say, because I was the national spokesperson for the Lupus Foundation of America, I was interviewed on the Tom Brokaw ABC Evening News.
Is that right?
2 minutes. Now, it's only 30 minutes and usually get 30 seconds.
Right.
They gave me 2 minutes. They sent a whole production crew to my house in DC, followed me around, interviewed me, had my daughter who was 2 years old. They were fascinated that she knew how to read certain words, and they filmed her, and she was on TV reading to me. Not reading, but, Apple, car, that's
right.
How, she's only 2 years old. How is she able to do this? I was thinking, I thought y'all were interviewing me about lupus and following me around, but it was all good. So though I would say that is something that very little people know about me.
Hey everyone, I want to thank you for watching this episode on Follow the Brand TV. Remember to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell to get our new episodes as they are released. Also, make sure to visit our website at www.5starbdm.com. Until next time, build a 5-star brand that people can follow.